January is the month of lies. If you've worked in the fitness industry as long as I have, you eventually learn to hate the calendar. January 2nd marks the beginning of the migration of repentant souls. They arrive in schools, wearing lycra clothes that still smell like the store, carrying colorful water bottles, fueled by the fragile determination of someone who spent 3 weeks stuffing their face with holiday roast and sides, and now wants a pop star's body before carnival. We call this Project Summer. I call it Project Desperation. My name is Danilo. I'm a personal trainer and floor instructor at Iron Fit 24 Hours, one of those low-cost gym chains that have spread through Sao Paulo like a fungal plague. Black walls, neon yellow lights, electronic music played too loud, and membership fees that are way too cheap. I work the shift nobody wants, midnight to 6 in the morning. It's a lonely shift. The crowd at that hour is usually made up of insomniacs, ER doctors, cops, and a few antisocial meatheads who hate sharing equipment. The sound of weight plates clanking echoes in the empty warehouse like gunshots. The smell is a mix of rubber, citrus disinfectant, and cold sweat. But this specific January, something was different. It started with Mariana. Mariana had been a regular student on my shift for about 6 months. A nurse, 30-something, slightly overweight. She was always nice, the type who brings coffee for the instructor and chats about TV shows between sets on the leg press. Her goal was to lose 5 kilograms, about 11 pounds. A healthy, realistic goal. When I came back from my New Year's break on January 3rd, Mariana was there. It was 3:15 a.m. I was at the front desk, fighting off sleep, when she walked in. I almost didn't recognize her. In less than 2 weeks, sheer Mariana looked like she had lost 10 or 15 kilos, 20 to 30 pounds. Her workout clothes, once tight, now hung off her body like empty sacks. Her face was gaunt, her cheekbones protruding like blades beneath pale skin. There were deep, purple circles around eyes that looked glazed over, focused on nothing. "Mariana?" I called out, stepping out from behind the counter. "Wow, long time no see. You look different." She didn't smile. The old Mariana would have made a joke about cutting carbs. But this Mariana just turned her head slowly in my direction like a robot with rusted gears. "Need to train," she whispered. Her voice was hoarse, dry. "Sure, but are you okay? You're pale." "Spinning room," she said, ignoring my question. "Kleber said the spinning room is closed for maintenance." Kleber was the unit manager, a guy who looked like he was assembled from Lego pieces made of meat and steroids. Teeth too white, a fake orange tan, and an aggressive corporate energy that made me nauseous. He was never at the gym at dawn. His shift was strictly 9 to 5. "Is Kleber here?" I asked, confused. Mariana didn't answer. She marched toward the back of the gym, where the bike room was located. It was a closed room with soundproofing and glass windows, which, I noticed now, had been covered with brown butcher paper from the inside. "Maintenance," read a crooked sign on the door. Mariana typed a code into the keypad on the door. The light turned green. She went in. A blast of hot air escaped the room before the door closed. Hot and humid, and with a strange smell. It didn't smell like sweat. I went back to the counter, uneasy. Over the next few nights, the pattern repeated, and it got worse. It wasn't just Mariana. I started noticing a group. There were about 10 of them, men and women, varying ages, but they all shared the same cadaverous aesthetic. Gray skin, sudden and excessive thinness, trembling hands, and that dead fish stare. They always arrived between 3 and 3:30 a.m. They didn't speak to me. They didn't use their fingerprint at the turnstile. which was against the rules, but the system seemed to release them automatically. They went straight to the spinning room, typed in the password, and disappeared inside for exactly 1 hour. None of them touched the weights. None of them drank water. They walked in and they crawled out, leaning on the walls, soaked in a sweat that looked oily. I tried to talk to Kleber at the shift change at 6 a.m. "Kleber, what's going on in the bike room?" I asked, grabbing my backpack. "The night crew is using it, but the sign says maintenance, and Mariana, man, she's sick. She lost weight way too fast." Kleber was drinking his whey protein, scrolling on his phone. He didn't even look up. "It's a high-performance group, Danilo. New franchise protocol, metabolic hit, elite stuff. Don't worry about it. They pay for a black diamond plan." "But they look like crack addicts, Kleber, seriously. Their skin is melting off. And what is that smell?" Kleber finally looked at me. The white smile vanished. His eyes went cold. "Are you a doctor, Danilo?" "No, I'm a physical trainer." "Then train physiques and leave the management to me. If they get sick, they signed a liability waiver. Your job is to watch the weight room and make sure no one steals the dumbbells. The bike room is rented for a private project. Don't meddle, stay in your lane." He patted my shoulder, a pat that was a little too hard. "The job market is tough, Danilo. Don't lose your job over curiosity." I went home, but I couldn't sleep. The image of Mariana haunted me. I knew what drugs did. I've seen people abuse diuretics, T3, clenbuterol. But this was different. They weren't just drying out fat. They looked like they were being consumed from the inside out. Last night, I decided I wasn't going to ignore it anymore. It was 3:40 a.m. The zombie group, as I'd mentally nicknamed them, had been inside the spinning room for 20 minutes. The gym was empty except for them and me. I went to the door. I pressed my ear against the glass covered by the brown paper. The soundproofing was good, but not perfect. I could hear the hum of the bikes spinning, but I didn't hear music. Spinning classes have loud music, shouting, motivation. In there, the only human sound was moaning. Muffled screams of pain, crying, and someone vomiting. I tried the handle, locked. I looked at the keypad. 4 digits. I remembered the gym's anniversary, nothing. I tried today's date, nothing. Then I remembered Kleber's ego. He had a tattoo on his arm, 1985. The year he was born. I typed 1985. The light turned green. I took a deep breath, pulled my shirt up to cover my nose, and opened the door. The heat hit me like a physical punch. The temperature inside must have been bordering on 50 degrees Celsius, 122 degrees Fahrenheit. The air was thick, unbreathable, saturated with humidity and that chemical smell of rotten vinegar mixed with boiled meat. The room was dim, lit only by red emergency lights along the baseboards. There were 12 bikes, all occupied, but they weren't just pedaling. Mariana was on the front bike, strapped to the machine. There were Velcro straps binding her wrists to the handlebars and her feet to the pedals. She was pedaling at a frantic, inhuman pace. Her legs were spinning so fast they were a blur. But she wasn't doing it voluntarily. Her bike and the others were connected to an external motor. The motor was forcing the pedals to turn. If she stopped applying force, her legs would be snapped by the mechanical movement. She had to keep up with the machine's rhythm to avoid having her bones ground to dust. But the worst part wasn't the forced movement. The worst part was the masks. Every student was wearing a transparent oxygen mask connected by tubes that went up to the ceiling, feeding into the AC vents. Inside the masks, a yellowish gas was being pumped in. Mariana looked at me when I entered. Her eyes were red with burst blood vessels. Her skin glistened with sweat, but also with blisters. Small burn blisters covered her arms. She tried to scream, but the mask muffled the sound. She was cooking. Literally. "My God!" I shouted, running to her bike. I tried to undo the Velcro. They were locked with industrial zip ties. I looked at the bike's panel. There was no stop button. The wiring went straight into the wall. The other students didn't even look at me. Some seemed passed out, heads hanging low, but their legs kept spinning, driven by the motor, tearing muscles and ligaments in unconscious bodies. "What the fuck are you doing here?" The voice came from the back of the room, from the shadows. Kleber was there. He was wearing a white hazmat suit and a professional gas mask. He was holding a tablet. "Turn this off," I screamed, coughing from the heat and the chemical smell. "You're killing them. Mariana is burning up with fever." Kleber walked calmly toward me. He looked huge in that suit. "They're not dying, Danilo. They're metabolizing. Do you know what DNP is? 2,4-dinitrophenol?" He pointed to the tubes in the ceiling. "It's an industrial compound. Used to make explosives in World War I. The workers who handled it lost weight until they vanished. It uncouples oxidative phosphorylation. Basically, it makes the cell stop storing energy and turn everything into heat. Fat turns into fire. This is poison." I tried to lunge at him, but the heat was making me dizzy. My legs felt like lead. "It's efficiency," Kleber shouted, his voice muffled by the mask. "They signed the contract, Danilo. They wanted to lose 10 kilos in a week. They begged for this. I'm just giving them what they asked for. The gas raises their basal body temperature to 40 degrees. They burn 5,000 calories an hour sitting there. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it cooks the internal organs a little bit. But look at her." He pointed to a woman in the second row. She was skeletal. She walked in here wearing a size 14 on Monday. Today is Friday, and she's a size 4. Her project summer is done. Who cares if she needs dialysis? For the rest of her life, she'll look skinny in a bikini. "You're sick." I tried to punch him. It was a mistake. I had been breathing that toxic air for 2 minutes. My strength was gone. My punch was slow, pathetic. Kleber just grabbed my arm and shoved me. I fell onto the rubber floor. The floor was hot. It burned my hand. I saw Mariana looking at me. A tear of blood ran down under her mask. She mouthed something. I read her lips. "Kill me." I stood up, stumbling, and ran for the door. I needed to call the police. I needed to get out of that oven. I grabbed the handle, locked. "The session isn't over, Danilo," Kleber said, typing something on the tablet. "The locks are automatic. They only open when the thermal cycle ends. 30 minutes left." I heard a mechanical click come from the ceiling. The hissing of the gas got louder. "And since you're here, and you've seen the franchise's trade secret, I think you need a workout too. You've been looking a little bloated, Danilo. Too much beer over the holidays?" I felt my throat close up. The air was turning yellow. Kleber walked toward me. He wasn't going to put me on a bike. He didn't need to. Just being in that room was enough. "DNP in gaseous form is absorbed through the skin and mucous membranes," Kleber explained, as if giving a biomechanics lecture. "Without the mask, you'll absorb a lethal dose in, let's say, 10 minutes. Your temperature will rise to 42 degrees. Your proteins will denature. Your brain will cook inside your skull. It's a quick death, but hot." I ran to the windows covered with brown paper. I pounded on the glass. Double-tempered glass. Unbreakable without a hammer. I screamed for help. But who would hear? The gym was empty. The soundproofing was perfect. Kleber sat on a stool in the corner, crossed his legs, and kept monitoring the data on the tablet. Save your oxygen, Danilo. The more you move, the hotter you get. I felt sweat break out on my forehead. It wasn't normal sweat. It was a flood. My shirt was soaked in seconds. My heart started beating out of rhythm. I felt a burning in my stomach as if I'd swallowed hot coals. My vision began to blur, yellowing at the edges. I looked at Mariana. She had passed out, but her legs kept spinning, driven by the relentless motor. I heard a dry snap. Crack. Her knee had broken. The bone tore through the skin, white and shiny, but the machine kept forcing her leg to turn, grinding the joint with every rotation. Kleber didn't even look. I fell to my knees. The floor was boiling. I tried to crawl to the door. My skin was red, throbbing. I could feel my blood bubbling in my veins. It felt like being inside a giant microwave. 20 minutes left. Kleber's voice sounded distant, metallic. Hang in there. Think of the results. Think about how shredded you'll look in the coffin. My eyes are swelling. I think my tears are evaporating before they fall. I'm writing this on my phone's notes app, with fingers slippery from sweat and the grease leaking from my pores. The battery is dying. The phone is overheating too. If anyone finds this phone, if anyone finds what's left of us, don't believe the official report. They'll say it was a fire. They'll say it was a short circuit in the sauna. It wasn't. It was Project Summer. Kleber is standing up now, like he's coming toward me with a syringe. To speed up the process, he says. I'm so hot. I just wanted the air conditioning to work. Mariana stopped moving. The machine keeps spinning her legs, but her head has fallen back. Her mask is full of black vomit. Kleber is smiling. It's January. It's the month of Project Summer. It's the month of lies. I always wanted to be on the police force, to get in on the action that the officers in my city were so often acclaimed for, to revel in the spotlight of cracking open a case and watching it spill out all over the news and airwaves. So imagine my disappointment when, instead of ending up in a speedy cruiser with a badge and a gun, I ended up at a desk answering the calls made for the exact people I wanted to be. Yep, I ended up as a dispatcher. I mean, it's not all bad. There's honestly more action in it than most would think, believe me. I've had calls that have made my blood run ice cold, ranging from desperate pleas of grown men on the brink of suicide to hushed whispers of kidnapped women attempting to escape their captor. However, I don't believe I've ever experienced a call quite as haunting as the one I'll tell you about now. You see, most of the calls I get are from adults. I'm talking between the ages of 15 and 100, so the sinking feeling in my chest when I heard the voice of a small boy, no older than 8, on the other end, was nearly tangible. 911, what is the location of your emergency? Hello? Hi there, buddy, what's going on? Is this the police? I'm who sends the police. Can you tell me where you are? The drawn-out childlike ignorance stirred some true frustration, but I managed to stay professional. Okay, so, I'm at my house. Okay, buddy, let me ask this. Why do you think you need the police? I asked, a little satirically. Okay, I think there's a man in my closet, and my mom said that the police help when there's a bad man. I paused for a brief second. Bad man in your closet, huh? I asked. Did you tell your parents about this bad man? Mommy and Daddy are asleep right now, he whispered. Confident that I was being subject to this kid's nightmare, I rolled my eyes a bit. And you're absolutely sure there's a man in your closet? I asked with a bit of a sigh. Well, I don't think he's in there anymore, the kid said, a hint of confusion in his voice. So he's gone now? You just imagined a monster in the closet? I asked, annoyed. No, he's not gone. He's not in the closet anymore. My blood ran cold at this. So you saw the man leave the closet? I asked, with more urgency in my voice. Yes, sir, I saw him in the closet. He was smiling at me with his big sharp teeth, the boy enunciated. Okay, listen to me very carefully, all right, buddy? I need you to go give the phone to your parents. Can you do that for me? Let me talk to them about this bad man. I can't, he whined. That's where the bad man just went. Okay, buddy, can you please tell me any sort of landmarks near your house? Any gas station, stores, or any particular tree that looks funny? The line grew silent for a moment. You there, buddy? I asked. Oh, I know. Do you know what a quick trip is? My head fell into my hands, completely defeated. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I do. Do you live near a quick trip? Yeah, it's the one with the messed up letter. It looks like Ick Trip, he laughed. Finally, a glimmer of hope. Perfect, buddy, I know that one. Is there anything else you could tell me? Color of your house? Suddenly, the sounds of screams flooded the other end of the line. I heard what I assumed was the boy's mother scream the most blood-curdling scream I'd ever heard, followed by the sounds of the father screaming, "Who are you? How did you get in my—" before the voice disintegrated into disgusting gurgling noises. The boy began to sob and cry for his mommy and daddy, and I screamed into the receiver for him to hide as quickly as possible. Hearing shuffling on the other end as the boy dove under the covers, I began to plead. Plead with the boy, plead with God, plead with whoever would listen. Please, please let me find this child. Come on, buddy. I need you to think really hard, okay? It is incredibly important that I know where you are, all right? Please, tell me anything you can. Through tears and whimpers, the boy muttered, "We're the house with the blue mailbox?" That was enough as I dispatched officers to the region. Okay, blue mailbox, perfect. Do you know what color your door is? It's red, he whispered, barely audibly. Perfect, buddy, absolutely perfect. I've got officers on the way right now, okay? What I need you to do for me is stay as quiet as you can. Can you do that for me? Through sniffles, he managed to get out a pitiful before the rapid sound of footsteps was heard sprinting toward the bedroom. The boy's breathing became heavy and sporadic as I tried to calm him, but tried to tell him that everything would be all right. Just before reaching the bedroom door, the footsteps slowed to a tiptoe, like the patter of an arachnid crawling across hardwood. The boy's crying became louder and louder as I begged him to stay quiet. All of a sudden, the sound of sirens was heard on the other end. The boy's crying became louder and louder as I begged him to stay quiet. All of a sudden, the sound of sirens was heard on the other end, and a wave of relief washed over my heart. Do you hear that, buddy? I asked frantically. The line remained completely silent aside from the single creak of the floorboard before I screamed into the receiver for the boy to run, to make a mad dash as fast as he could out of the room, just to give him some time for the police to arrive, to get out of the room where he would die. The final thing I heard on the other end of the line was the sound of the boy springing up from the bed before a taunting gasp escaped his precious lungs. The line then fell dead. The next time I heard of this boy and his family was in the next day's evening news. "Family found murdered in home" was the headline. Videos showed that 3 body bags were removed from a town home with a blue mailbox and a red door. Sources claimed the family was mauled one by one as they slept, and that the son had been found completely broken and slashed. I was absolutely and utterly dismayed. I didn't sleep. I couldn't eat. And no matter how hard I tried, I could not get the sound of that boy's words out of my head. My mom said that the police help when there's a bad man. What a cruel joke. Honey, don't you think it's time for a date night? I stare at my husband, slightly shocked. He's never been that into dates, and he's not the romantic type. A date night? Are you my husband? He smiles and lets out a chuckle. I know. I don't usually ask for dates, but it's a Friday night and we don't have anything else to do. It makes me a little happy that he wants to have a date. Where are we going to go? He looks at me with a weird facial expression. Where are we going to go? Nowhere. I have a movie that we can watch. I'll get the popcorn. My hopes of having a romantic date night have now vanished. I was expecting a nice dinner, walk, or something thoughtful. He knows that I don't like films. I walk over to the couch and reluctantly sit on it. My husband walks over to me and sits down next to me while he holds a giant bucket of popcorn. What are we watching? It's probably nothing good, but I at least want to have some conversation. You know how I told you that I've been trying to do some creative things? I made a movie. He made a movie and never told me, and now he wants to watch it? So strange. I stare at the TV as the movie starts to play, and I immediately feel fear start to sink into my soul. My friends that went missing are in this film. The man that I've been cheating on my husband with is in this film. I slowly look over at my husband. He looks very pleased and full of joy. I look back at the film and I cover my mouth in an attempt to keep myself from puking. I watch as all my friends get murdered. The last person to die was my boyfriend. Blood everywhere. The screams, the blood, the crying, it all looks so real. This isn't a movie. It's real life. My friends went missing because of him. My boyfriend hasn't texted back in a couple days because of him. I jump off of the couch. How could you? How fucking could you? He laughs. You shouldn't have cheated on me. When you do bad things, people may have to suffer. Don't you love this beautiful film? I did it for you. If you try to leave, I will kill you. Sit back on the couch and be the devoted wife that you always promised to be. Lana Dawson welcomed me with a tired smile. She was desperate, like everyone who hires a medium. And I was just as desperate, which is why I was back to this gig. Trying other jobs only confirmed that I wouldn't make a living doing anything else. Lana hired me because it had been 20 years since her parents were brutally murdered in that house, a crime that remained unsolved despite an extensive police investigation. She was 15 at the time and luckily at her grandma's. She tried private detectives before and they found nothing. In the end, I imagine reluctantly, she found me through a friend of a friend. Good thing for her, I needed the money and booked my flight right away. It was a typical home in a quiet Florida suburb, surrounded by mostly vacant houses. Lana decided to never sell it, keeping it frozen in time, perhaps hoping someday it would help her find the truth. As she led me inside, an old woman next door was watering her plants, the only neighbor left. She glanced over and gave me a polite wave. This is a peaceful neighborhood of mostly widows and retirees, Lana explained later. Nothing like that ever happened before or after. The sorrow still present on her face was undeniable even after all these years. The living room was completely empty. Not even spiders roamed around. There was just dust and a single light bulb no one had ever bothered to take down. Lana pulled back the curtain, flooding the space with sunlight probably for the first time in ages. She gave me a quick tour through the kitchen and bedrooms. I could tell she wasn't very hopeful that I'd find anything, and I couldn't blame her. Never promise a client results. That's a rule I learned early on. Most of the haunted houses I visit have nothing to see. Either the dead moved on or they simply don't want to be disturbed. Not the kind of pitch that brings in clients. But spirits tend to remain where they died. The energy of death clings to a place, anchoring them there. If Lana's parents still lingered in this house, they could talk to me. I asked her for a chair and placed it in the center of the living room. I'll try to channel the voices of the spiritual world now, I told her. So please, we need to remain silent. That was just a fancy way of telling her to stay quiet so I could hear if any dead would actually talk. I sat down and closed my eyes. For several minutes, I waited in silence, hearing nothing but the wind and birds outside. I was ready to give up and explain to Lana my no-refund policy when I heard faint weeping. It was soft, almost inaudible, and gradually grew louder. "Is there someone here among us?" I called out firmly. The crying stopped, and a metallic, ethereal voice asked, "Can you hear me?" "Yes, I can. Who are you?" No response. The entity resumed crying. I explained what I heard to Lana, who was now slightly more excited by the discovery. It could be her family. "Please tell me, are you Mr. or Miss Dawson?" I tried. The weeping stopped abruptly. "Do you know where Miss Dawson is?" the voice asked. "I want to tell her I'm sorry." "What do you mean? Sorry for what?" The light flickered for a second, and I saw the curtain shift slightly before the answer came. "For what I did to her," the voice confessed, its tone laced with sorrow. "For killing her the way I did." I felt my heart pound in my chest and turned to Lana. "I don't think this is your family." Now, in my experience, spirits can be deceitful. It wouldn't be the first time some smart-ass ghost tried to play me for a fool, so I didn't immediately relay all I'd heard to Lana. She would probably freak out anyway, and I needed her to stay quiet for the rest of the session. "Who are you?" I asked next, to no response. "Do you know what happened that day?" I tried again. This time, after a long pause, the voice answered. "It wasn't supposed to happen like that," it murmured. "She shouldn't have had to die." That was an interesting response. "What about Mr. Dawson?" I asked. "The man got what he deserved." The voice suddenly deepened, taking on an almost demonic tone. The light bulb flickered violently. Its reaction made sense based on what I had read about the crime scene. Mr. Dawson had died from 15 stab wounds, most likely in his bed. The killer was probably driven by emotion, but Ms. Dawson showed signs of a struggle. Her only fatal injury was a deep slice across her neck. Maybe her death wasn't intentional at first. This could actually be the murderer. But why did you do it? I decided it was time for tough questions. "I just want to help you find peace. It's the only way you'll leave this house and see her again." There was a long silence. Then it spoke, its words thick with emotion. "Because I loved her more than anything. I used to watch her every day, getting in her car, walking the dog, buying groceries. She did it all with that same smile. When she waved at me, I felt it in my bones." "That doesn't explain why you killed her," I pressed. My questions likely revealed the true nature of the voice to Lana, and her eyes widened in shock. "I didn't want to," the voice roared. The bulb exploded, making Lana jump. "I just wanted to get rid of him so we could be together. But she wouldn't accept it. She wouldn't come with me." The weeping resumed. I pressed for more answers, but got nothing. Everything I had heard spun in my mind like a whirlwind. When everything clicked, I stood up and walked to the door. Lana was as pale as snow, visibly shaken by what had happened. Even if she hadn't heard a word, the energy in the room was impossible to ignore. She asked me why I was leaving. "I'm just thirsty," I casually said. "There's no running water here, so I'll ask that old lady next door for a glass. I'll be back in a minute." The neighbor looked surprised to see me knocking on her door. She was a tiny, fragile lady, maybe in her 70s. She was making bread dough but stopped to answer and invited me in for some water. As I followed her to the kitchen, I took a look at her home. Furniture that had to be at least half a century old and a large portrait in the living room of her and her husband, taken long ago. She handed me a glass of water and went back to kneading the fresh dough. "I hope you don't mind me doing this," she said, using all her small weight against it. "I just love having them ready for dinner." "Don't mind me at all," I thanked her, sipping the water slowly. "By the way, you and your husband are so beautiful together in that photo," I said, referring to the portrait. Her face stiffened for a brief moment before returning to its usual warm smile. She confessed to me he had abandoned her years ago, but it was hard to let go of the memories. One day he simply got out and never returned. Determined to change the subject, she asked what I was doing in that dusty, abandoned house. I told her I was a medium. "Oh, that's fun," she giggled. "Did you find anything there?" "Yes, as a matter of fact, I did," I answered. "I found your husband. He told me a lot about you, about him, and about what he did to the Dawson family." She froze, hands still buried in the dough. Slowly, she turned around, scanning my face to see if I was joking, if I really knew the truth about what had happened 20 years ago. I didn't. It was a bluff, an educated guess. For the killer to be a spirit trapped in that house, he had to have died nearby. For him to know the private details of Ms. Dawson's life, he had to be someone that lived close, someone who could watch her every move, like a neighbor. And there were not many of them around here. I had no idea it would work. My theory could be pretty much wrong. But the bluff paid off because the woman broke down in tears. For Lana, finding the truth was all that mattered, and I gave it to her. Her family had been killed by a neighbor obsessed with her mother. In an act of desperation, he took advantage of the night to break into the house and confess his feelings, just as she had gone to the kitchen for a glass of water. When she rejected him, he grabbed her and slit her throat with a sharp fish knife. Then, in a fit of rage, he walked into the bedroom where her father slept and stabbed him to death. It took me a few more sessions with the killer to get the whole truth out. The old lady confirmed and admitted to Lana that she had suspected her husband all along. When she confronted him, he fled, never to be found, probably dying somewhere years later. The end. Or at least that's the end I told Lana. I can't say she was happy about it, but at least she knew now. There could finally be peace. What I didn't tell her was that the husband never fled, and his wife didn't simply confront him with words. When he arrogantly admitted to the crime, showing no remorse, she shot him with the handgun they kept under the bed and buried him in the backyard. I advised the woman to lie to Lana, keeping her safe from any legal trouble. That way everything would end up in its right place. The old woman in her home, the husband trapped inside that house, drowning in his regrets. Fuck his peace. Hi, I'm not great at writing these, so sorry if this comes off weird or rambly. I've just been holding this in for a while and don't really have anyone I can talk to about it, hoping maybe someone here has been through something similar. So there's this girl. I'll call her E for privacy. We've been seeing each other for a while now. I wouldn't say we're official, but there's definitely a connection. I know what that feels like. That spark, you know? It's been there since the first time I saw her in line at the pharmacy. She laughed at something the cashier said, and I swear I fell for her then and there. Anyway, lately, she's been acting different. Not cold, exactly. Just weird, like she's worried about something. She keeps looking over her shoulder when she's walking, like someone's following her. She holds her bag tighter, walks faster. She even started taking a different route to work. I remember she'd always stop at the cafe for a morning coffee. Now she cuts through side streets or sometimes loops around through the park. I thought about talking to her that day but couldn't find the words. She used to dress a certain way too. Cute soft sweaters, long skirts. Lately it's hoodies, baggy coats, sometimes even a hat pulled low. Like she's trying to hide herself. From what though? At first I thought maybe something happened at work. Or maybe an old ex showed up. I don't know, but it's like she doesn't trust the world anymore. We used to have these moments. Nothing deep, but special moments where I felt we connected more. Like when she'd stop outside the bakery and look at the cakes through the window, I'd see her smile, and I'd smile too. I always remembered what kind she stared at the longest. She never knew I paid attention like that. But now she barely pauses, just walks the sidewalk between people, head down. There's been other stuff too. I think someone might be messing with her. She started double locking her door, put up new curtains, got one of those doorbell cameras. I thought about knocking a few times just to check in, but I don't want it to come off the wrong way. I love her. I really do. I just want her to see that. Anyway, that's why I'm writing this. I don't know if I should give her space or try to talk to her. I don't want to come off like I'm pressuring her or anything, but it's hard not to feel shut out when someone you care about acts like you're a complete stranger. I miss her. I miss how things used to be between us. I brought her flowers tonight. I'm going to surprise her. I know they say not to show up unannounced, but I think when she sees it's me, when she sees how much I care, it'll help her understand. She's just confused right now, scared. But I can fix that. She should be home any minute now. I'm being quiet, don't worry. I'm writing this from my phone while I wait. It's a little cramped under the bed, but I don't mind. Over the last few nights, I've gotten used to it. Being so close to her while she sleeps fills me with a sense of joy and protectiveness. I hope she can see how much I love her. I hope she doesn't scream.